What's up, guys? Welcome back to Bass Fishing Tips. I have in my mouth what we're going to be talking about today, which is a jig. And I want to talk through some jig modifications that I do with brand new jigs out of the pack that help me to catch more fish on a jig, and I think will help you guys to gain confidence in a jig if you don't have much confidence in a jig right now. But before we get into all of that, I just want to remind you guys, thank you for being here. Really, if you clicked on this video today and you're new to the channel, make sure and hit that subscribe button. If you've been watching for a while, I appreciate you guys very, very much. And for anybody asking how to support this channel, make sure and use my Tackle Warehouse affiliate links. They are a link that takes you to Tackle Warehouse. If you're already shopping on Tackle Warehouse, you're not going to notice any difference at all. Essentially, when you use my link, I get a small commission. That small commission helps to keep this channel going in the right direction. So if you're going to go and shop on Tackle Warehouse anyway, please click through my links. I'll make sure and have them linked in the description and in the pinned comment so you guys can check them out, including my favorite jigs and trailers that we're going to be talking about today. Now, without further ado, let's talk about jig modifications. So this is a brand new jig right out of the pack. It's a Berkeley flipping jig. It's one of my favorite jigs to use. It's got a really good hook in it. It's just everything about it's good. But a lot of the times when you get a jig right out of the pack, the number one thing that you're going to notice, and I think the number one thing that people forget to modify, is this skirt length. A lot of jigs right out of the pack come with really long skirts, and the reason for that is so that you can modify it how you want to. Now, there are situations where a full untrimmed skirt is the best thing to use, but normally those are very deep water situations, things like a mop jig and stuff like that. They're specifically designed for that. But for me, when I get a jig right out of the pack, especially if it's a jig that I'm going to tie on and I'm going to go fishing with, like flipping, pitching, maybe dragging it a little bit and stuff like that, I want to go ahead and trim that jig skirt down. It's going to be the first thing that I do to that jig. And the way that I do that is I hold up my jig, I'm going to push that skirt aside, and I'm going to see that hook right there. Now, at the bottom of that hook, right at the bottom of the bend, is where I'm actually going to trim that skirt up to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that skirt material in between my two fingers. I'm going to pinch it like that right at the bottom of the bend of that hook, and then we are going to trim all the excess below that off. And now I know a lot of people get like all bent out of shape because they're thinking, I just brought this brand new bait and I'm going to trim all of that skirt material off there, and I'm going to just take all of that money I spent and trim it off there. Well, yeah, you're going to do that, because making that jig a little bit more compact, a little bit smaller, I believe will help you guys to get more bites and thus gain more confidence in the jig. And the thing about it is trimming it up and making it a little bit more compact doesn't take away the effectiveness of what is the jig and its ability to get really big bites as well. I cannot tell you how many big fish that I've caught on really small jigs, but it's so strange. I wish I understood why, but a jig is a big fish it's a big fish getter and a big bite getter, even when they're really small. There's something about that skirt material and the way that it works in the water. It gets those fish to bite, but I like to trim it up, make it just a little bit more compact, and make it so that, you know, it's just a smaller presentation in the water. Now, you can trim the skirt guard if you want to. Now, how I determine whether I need to trim the skirt guard or not, the skirt guard, I mean the weed guard on here, the hook guard or not, the way that I determine whether I'm going to trim that is just by kind of messing with it. I mean, you guys can see I can really easily bend that weed guard out of the way. And again, another reason why I like that Berkeley hook. But if you can't easily grab that thing and just push it down and bend it right out of the way, you might want to take a little bit of the bulk out of it. A lot of people, what they'll do, they'll just come like straight in here and they'll just like trim it right at the hook point. That's not what you want to do, because then that kind of defeats the purpose of the weed guard. If you want to take any weed guard material off there, kind of cut it at an angle. So I'll like come at it at an angle like this and just kind of get the first like top portion of that weed guard in your scissors. Don't cut the whole thing, and just kind of cut that thing at an angle like that. And what that's going to do is it's just going to take a little bit of that weed guard material out of there, and then it allows it to just bend a little bit easier. It's a little less intrusive on that hook point, and when those fish go to push that thing down and they bite down on that jig, what it does is there's a little bit less material there for them to have to push out of their way. But if you do anything like that, don't take like a big chunk straight out of the weed guard like that. Just kind of come at it at an angle like that and take a little bit of the bulk out of the weed guard, and that's what's going to help it to get out of the way of that hook point and allow those fish to get it really, really good. Now, the third one is going to be picking the right trailer. And I think picking the right trailer for a jig is super imperative, and I actually did a video on how to pick the right trailer in what water temperature. But I think when we're looking at jigs, and again, this is definitely going for the guys that don't have a ton of confidence in a jig. You're trying to go out there, get bites on a jig and gain confidence in a jig. Go with the smallest trailer that you can first. And so this is the little bitty chigger crawl. This is the 3-inch chigger crawl. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take this thing straight out of the pack, and you guys can see there's little ribs on the body there. I'm actually gonna cut off that first rib. Again, you know, hey, we're destroying a brand new bait, right, that we bought, but what we're doing is we're making that thing just a little bit more compact. We're making it a little bit smaller, a little bit more finesse, kind of matching the jig that we just cut up, and then we're gonna run that thing up onto our jig, and I'll show you how I know that we've made it kind of the perfect length is right when those little flappers on that claw, on those claws, clear just the bottom of that skirt material. And as you guys can see there, that is a really small, compact little flipping jig, which you still get that, you know, that bulky kind of jig presentation out of, though, and you're able to get those jig fish to bite. And I will give you one quick other tip when it comes to picking a trailer is pick something that contrasts the jig that you're throwing. As you guys can see, I'm throwing a purple and black jig here with a green pumpkin trailer. Baits that contrast themselves tend to get more bites, and I actually did a video about that on this channel as well. And if you want to watch that video where I talk about picking the right colors, click this video, it's popping up right here.